Welcome back to the Cal Park Bros podcast. Jason and I just discussed the Carl Nassib story regarding him coming out as the first active player within the National Football League to come out. Again, milestone story. Definitely want to talk about it during Pride Month. As us actually saying that, hey, we got to cover stuff that involves people from those communities. So that's us back in our Words Up with Action. Jason, I know you sent me an NPR story about cops saying low morale and department scrutiny are driving them away from their job. I'm sure that this is also probably related. We're going to see more stories like this after the Derek Chauvin video, the subsequent trial, the subsequent guilty verdict, and the subsequent sentencing. So I'm sure it's going to be a crap ton of stories about basic cops wanting to find a different career. NPR story references the historic calls for police accountability, reform, and attempts at racial reckoning have left police departments nationwide struggling to keep the officers they have and attract new ones to the force. The crisis comes as many cities continue to grapple with the fallout from the pandemic and sharp increases in shootings and murders. In many places, police morale has plunged and retirements and resignations have soared. A June survey of nearly 200 departments by the Police Executive Research Forum, a nonprofit think tank, shows a startling 45% increase in the retirement rate and a nearly 20% increase in resignations in 2021 compared to previous year. We are in uncharted territory right now, says Perf Executive Director Chuck Wexler. Policing is being challenged in ways I haven't seen ever. The exodus is affecting departments large, small, and in between. The research group survey shows that in the largest departments with 500 or more officers, the retirement rate has increased by nearly 30%. Overall, new police hiring has dropped 5%. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, real quick, so definitely you referenced Derek Chauvin and his sentencing that happened, which if for those who don't know, he was sentenced to 22 years in court the other day. So there's that, uh, and therefore we may talk about that in the future on one of our bite-sized live episodes. FYI, stay tuned for that. But yeah, I mean, I think if you're a police officer, knowing all the number one, all the scrutiny that you're getting from people videotaping everything you do and people criticizing that, hey, you did this wrong, did that wrong, even if you were in the right, possibly having those things scrutinized all the time probably gets a little bit annoying. And then now seeing that one wrong mistake, be it purposeful or not, now it's seen publicly that you can get prison time for it. So, so definitely, I know we talked about the whole labor shortage, a few episodes back, everything like that. Not to say that police officers are in a labor shortage. I don't know if I want to put it in that category. But what I did say is that people were taking their time to figure out what the hell else they want to do. Hey, I don't want to keep doing this anymore. I want to do something else. Perhaps for different reasons. Now a lot of officers are looking at that same thing. Hey, I want to do something else, whether it be retiring or moving on to somewhere else, or anybody who might have been considering being a police officer now is thinking, you know what, I'm good, and they're picking something else. Which is why you see all these numbers of the 45% retirement rate and all this stuff like that, and 30% in big departments and whatnot. But one thing I will say though is that if you're on your game, I mean, I get mistakes happen, but mistakes happen that cost someone their life. Those shouldn't happen. I almost want to say those aren't really mistakes. Those are just stupid decisions people make or officers make that want to cost people their lives or their health. Case in point, Chauvin, or any other example you want to give. So I, I definitely understand the scrutiny is not good. Now, the one thing I will say is that when it comes to I found a couple of articles from like actual departments, like here in North Carolina and also Atlanta, And officers do mention that one aspect of why they want to quit has been the violence they've experienced since all the screws happened towards them. Now, I definitely want to put it out there that I do not agree with people committing any violence or threats towards officers just because you're mad about something. Okay, I definitely understand the frustration, but if you're trying to spit at an officer, like I see in one article here, or if you're trying to throw fireballs or bombs or anything or like that at officers, that's just ridiculous. You don't need to be doing that. That officer you're throwing stuff at or spitting on probably did nothing in regards to the reason why you're mad, just because they're an officer. You don't got to do all that. But as an officer, if I'm scared for that, in addition, I mean, obviously your job's dangerous, right? Officers go into that knowing that, hey, this could, this shift could be my last. But they accept that knowing that it's dangerous. But not in addition to that, people just want to be idiots because they're mad at officers. Not even me, myself, they're just mad because I'm wearing this uniform. And that's not right. So in all regards, I definitely understand people not wanting to get into that profession because I know I never wanted to. I mean, I worked closely with them previous years, and they always asked me before. This is back in like the mid 2000s. They always asked me, "Hey, you should be an officer?" I'm like, "No, thanks," because I knew it was dangerous. I had a nice, safe, cushy job. I didn't have to get in the middle of that. Fast forward it to now, if I was in that same position, I would definitely not want to be an officer because, one, why? I don't like being scrutinized at the job I got now, let alone publicly, you know, like they get every day. Whether it's somebody on camera taping the whole thing they do, hey, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. So I get. I'm not definitely having any sympathy for any officers because it's still a profession that you chose to get into. But I definitely understand completely people wanting to get out of it or avoid going into it and doing a whole U-turn, going away from that industry. So that's my quick thought on that. What about you, sir?
I was quickly thinking about, as I do with most serious topics, I think about something I can say to kind of lighten the mood or, kind of sift through a very delicate discussion. And my first thought was the joke that Chris Rock made about some jobs can't have bad apples, and cops is definitely one of them. Like
Exactly.
you can't you just like you can't be a pilot and in all your test scenarios you can't be landing the fucking plane 3 out of 4 times. It's like that's not gonna cut it.
Exactly.
C student in any other occupation might be able to make that work. C student as a cop or a pilot probably gonna involve some scrutiny. Fucking A right, there's gonna be more scrutiny because never before has it been shown in high definition video. America saw itself in the mirror with that George Floyd shit. And they didn't like what they saw. And our love affair with police officers, it's complicated now. You know, think of all of the fervor, the Blue Lives Matter shit, which is just kind of absurd because no one's actually born a police officer.
Thank you. Say that again. Say that two more times, please, so everybody can hear it.
The Blue Lives Matter, reflexiveness to the Black Lives Matter movement is really absurd because no one's born a cop. Okay? It's an occupation. And I'm all for people having pride in their occupation. Hell, I am one of those individuals who has pride in my occupation. Jason, I know you have pride in what you do, but you weren't fucking born to do it. That is why people lose their shit. That is why people are angry when they see that blue line. Because they look at it like people just kind of drape themselves in all of the pomp and circumstance. And you're trying to use it as a fucking a golden fleece basically to say you are effectively infallible, that you are effectively not subject to this scrutiny. So that's why people are putting on the full court press, man. You got people that maybe came from police families and even they're fed up. You got people, you know, second, third generation cops, and they're saying, you know what? We have to change with the times. I don't consider myself to be anti-police. Hell, I have definitely called the cops a time or two. So I can't even say that. What I'm saying is, what's so funny? You're an idiot.
I think you know why I think it's so funny. But I'll let you continue. I'll bring that up later.
Well, yeah. Why don't you save it for the show? Anyways, what I think is important is j- just because you have police officers in an authority state, if you will, doesn't mean that you can effectively act without any sort of oversight. That's why you see a lot of municipalities having some sort of citizens oversight board. You know, cops don't have a blank check anymore in this country. And it
No,
makes and it makes me wonder, Jason, what's up?
no, I was going to say they definitely don't. And you mentioned it real quick that I think that's what it really is. For a long time, police officers, excuse me, might have had that kind of shade of protection when it comes to no one's really going to see what I do, so I don't really have to be as mindful for what I did before. Now that everyone's pretty much an amateur photographer or videographer, they got that little thing in their back pocket called a cell phone. Now I gotta be mindful of what I do because even if I don't see them with a cell phone, there's gonna be one pointing at me. And I almost feel like a lot of people that's their natural reaction now is that whenever they see an officer, with the lights on, pull somebody over or whatever, if they're in a position where they can do so, they're gonna pull their phone out and start filming something because they want to be the first to see something that happens so they can put it on their social media or whatever. Despite the reasoning, I feel like that's a lot of people's reactions now. They pull out their cell phone whenever they see something going on. I know there's a couple times I wanted to do that just because I was concerned for the person who might have been getting arrested based on the situation. But yeah, if you're an officer, yeah, that's something that's true. You're gonna get more scrutiny because there's more eyes on you, and it's called one's people behind the cell phone because they're going to video you. So that kind of sheet is pulled off. The show is there. The curtains are all pulled back, and everybody can see what you're doing. So yeah, I think I almost be willing to say that probably adds a lot to people's thoughts. Like, you know what? I might have been somebody who was in the middle when it comes to right and wrong, whether it's on purpose or not. But now that all these extra eyes on me, I don't want to be doing this no more. I don't want to get caught up. I'm not trying to get 20 years or more or any at all. So
Yeah, I think a lot of this really, and I'm a little skeptical because it, it's easy to say that a lot of this is because of the scrutiny about policing. But if you had 10 years, 15 years, 20 years on the force, and you had a once in a lifetime fucking pandemic, shit, I'd hang it up too, ignoring everything else that's happening. Honestly, let's be honest. We can talk about how dangerous a cop is.
you mean the job? You mean?
Correct. Thank you for redirecting that. That was helpful. Um, but I think a lot of folks look at a position like a police officer. I'm like, man, that's definitely in the good ass job category. Okay, if you make the most of it, spend a subsequent amount of time, pension, retirement. Some people would still consider that to be a good occupation, but it's all about how you sell it too, and how you present it. So
Well, I
we're
think
not.
that's going to vary between many different communities, sir, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, I I don't see defunding the police as a viable option.
Well, I've been saying this a lot lately in our episodes, but I wasn't going there. But
But you weren't going there.
no, I wasn't. I wasn't even talking about that at all. But what I was saying is, I think I agree. I agree with you. It can easily be looked at as a good job because of the benefits that come along with it. You know, pension, retirement plans, whatever. You know, 401k. You know, in some cases, job security. But I still think that line's going to be drawn within certain communities based off of. I will say a lot of it. I think is how a person is raised to think of the police, and unfortunately, which I have to say is pretty true based on how I grew up. Well, you grew up in the same neighborhood at least, so I don't know what your perspective is, but I feel like many of the people in our community that we grew up with probably didn't have the greatest opinion of police officers when it comes to it being an actual good job. Um, Again, as we got older, I'm sure perspectives changed for a lot of people, but that took that individual probably making their own opinions. But if your parents are pretty much always teaching, not that mine were because they didn't really, but if your parents are teaching you, hey, cops are bad, don't trust them, don't ever call the cops, don't or no snitching, whatever you want to call it, that's going to put that negative aspect of what police are and what they do in your head. And if you grow up with that as an adult too, then guess what? You're probably going to teach your kids the same thing too. So, and that's why I say communities probably look at that as a good job or not in totally different perspectives.
Yeah, I was talking more about the financial aspect, not necessarily the viewpoint on whether or not you think that it is a positive good to have police as a part of your ecosystem.
Well, even the financial aspect too, that's more of, I guess, the value somebody wants to put on that. I mean, yeah, it may pay out a certain number of dollars, but I'm going to butcher the quote, but I saw a quote from Warren Buffett earlier that said, "Pay is what you are willing to give for something, but the value is what it's going to give you," or something like that. But it was a good quote, and yeah, so the job of an officer is going to pay you whatever is going into it, but if you don't value that, like if being an officer including overtime gets you 100 grand, which by most people 100 grand is going to be a good amount of money for a job. Well, if you feel like it's not worth it because of X, Y, Z, then it don't matter because it ain't because it's not enough to do that job. People make that evaluation all the time, for no matter what job it is. You know, people might say, "I'm not going to be a garbage man,"
That's true.
but if you paid you enough, you're gonna do it, right? So, so I definitely agree with you. Definitely financially, for me anyway, I'd say just from what I've seen, yeah, it can pay you pretty well, but is it worth it?
It's good stuff, Jay. All right. That concludes the cops and low morale um, segment. Coming up next, we're going to talk about some sleep hygiene tips to improve just overall health with proper sleep habits. Coming up on Cow Park Rose.